As I poured coffee into my mug, a sharp knock shattered the morning's tranquility. 2 distinct raps reverberated, then silence fell. My wristwatch showed 9:17 a.m., a detail I just noted. The day had been unremarkable, serene, until I opened the door to reveal a man in a suit, sweat glistening on his brow despite the cool autumn breeze. "Mr. Langford?" he inquired, clutching his briefcase as if it were his lifeline. "That's right," I replied. "I'm here regarding a civil lawsuit. You've been served. Your wife is seeking $7 million. My grip on the doorknob remained steady as I responded. "My wife died 2 years ago." He blinked, offering a nervous laugh, but my unwavering gaze silenced him. "My apologies, sir. There must be a mistake in the documents." I stepped aside, inviting him in. That moment marked the unraveling of my reality. We had shared 15 years of marriage. In the beginning, my love for Maura burned intensely. Her radiant smile could eclipse the subtle shadows in her eyes, a darkness I thought only I perceived. I believed I saw past her polished exterior, but I was merely the easiest to fool. Together, we crafted a life. My law practice, her art gallery. She showed little interest in my legal battles but thrived on the wealth and connections they provided. She played the devoted spouse while I waged wars in courtrooms. When cancer claimed her, she slipped away quietly, per her wishes, just ashes and a signed note. Or so I thought. The first sign of trouble was a $1,900 withdrawal from our old joint account last month. I was certain I'd closed that account after her passing. Then I noticed the faint scent of Chanel No. 5 on a tie I hadn't worn since her memorial. The third shock was the lawyer at my door, presenting a lawsuit signed by a woman supposedly lost to ovarian cancer. Grief morphed into suspicion, and I began to investigate. I pored over every record, death certificate, bank statements, medical files. What had I missed? A private company handled her cremation, led by a man with a slick smile and cheap shoes who insisted on cash. I returned to the crematory, only to find it gone, as if it had never existed. Digging further, I discovered hospital security footage showed no evidence of Maura's admission, no records under her name or maiden name. She had vanished weeks before her supposed death, and I'd been too grief-stricken to question the absence of a body. I reached out to an old client, a former CIA operative. Within days, he uncovered the truth. Maura Langford had flown to Argentina 6 days before her death, arm in arm with Patrick Voss. That name cut deep. Patrick, my former junior partner, whom I dismissed for siphoning client funds. Maura had pleaded for leniency on his behalf, and I'd complied. Now I understood her motives. Revenge isn't a blaze, it's a meticulous balance sheet. I closed every financial gap they thought they could exploit. Then I traced the shell companies linked to the lawsuit, each one pointing to a Buenos Aires P.O. box registered under aliases, Luna and Soul Enterprises, nicknames from our shared past. I couldn't help but admire their boldness. I enlisted a forensic accountant, providing only names and numbers, no backstory. He unraveled a web of deceit, identity theft, insurance fraud, a scheme so intricate it could headline a crime documentary. My response was precise. I filed criminal charges, not civil ones, accusing them of wire fraud, faking a death, insurance scams, and identity theft. I gathered every piece of evidence, flight records, post-death transactions, forged signatures, and channeled them through a trusted lawyer to the U.S. Attorney's Office. But I wasn't finished. 2 weeks later, I flew to Buenos Aires without telling a soul. I staked out a gallery I suspected was hers, its style unmistakably Maura's, down to the lighting. Then I saw her, alive, laughing, her hand in Patrick's, wearing the necklace I'd given her for our 10th anniversary. I took a photo and left without a word. Not yet. 3 days later, Argentine authorities raided their apartment. Interpol had marked them as fugitives the moment the U.S. filed charges. 7 federal indictments followed, with bail denied. They were obvious flight risks. I watched the raid footage online. Maura looked weary, her allure faded. Patrick sobbed as the handcuffs snapped on. Maura stared at the floor, unaware I stood in the crowd, sunglasses concealing my eyes, close enough to hear the cuffs click. Back home, I sat in the quiet of my empty house. The lawyer who delivered the papers called a week later, fumbling through apologies, insisting he hadn't known the lawsuit was a sham. I reassured him it was fine. I'd resolved it. In the end, they both pleaded guilty. Patrick broke first, confessing everything. Maura held out, clinging to her pride, but the evidence was insurmountable. Photos, bank records, flight logs. They surrendered every account, every asset, including the $7 million she tried to extort from me. She'll spend 14 years repaying it through prison work. A fitting irony, isn't it? Sometimes, I reread her last authentic letter, written before she disappeared. She wrote of exhaustion, of life feeling too heavy. She omitted her plan to flee with my money, my trust, and the man I'd once mentored. But I see through her words now. I don't rage or lose myself in liquor. I strategize. Justice isn't always a judge's gavel or a badge. Sometimes it's a woman who faked her death watching the man she betrayed stand resolute, in command. I didn't bury my wife. I buried her lies. And I left her to rot in the deception she crafted. That's my resolution. That's my justice.